1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. On the phone with Bob Wischuzen. He's the radio voice of the Jets. We are your home for Jets football. You can follow him on Twitter at ESPN Bob. And Bob, we just got to know, who's going to be carrying the ball for Gang Green in 2016? Because it doesn't look like Chris Ivory is going to be the guy doing it.
That's a good question. I think part of that will play out in the draft. Part of it certainly can play out in free agency. I don't think Bilal Powell showed them enough last year to convince anyone that he's a number one guy. They need at least, if not a clear-cut number one guy, someone to go 50-50 with him. Chris Ivory, admirable for the effort that he gave, but the way that he runs, he's just dinged all the time. And that's something that I think they have to take into account, that you can't go out and pay a player that you're worried about being injured constantly. Ezekiel Elliott from Ohio State is a name that many draft prognosticators have projected in mock drafts to go to the Jets. If he's still on the board at 20, that's a way that they could go. But now it's interesting. It used to be that you would have the draft and then react through free agency. Now free agency precedes the draft in the NFL. So you kind of have to make some of those decisions prior to what you're targeting in the draft. But there's no doubt. I mean, they need a back, and they're going to have a different one on the team next year, I would say.
I understand the thought you bring up about free agency before the draft now, but when we enter that draft cycle, is it going to be almost a sure thing that the Jets at least draft one running back?
It's hard to say a sure thing because last year, I mean, they even with the sixth overall pick took the best player available because they thought that the value outweighed the need, because they thought that Leonard Williams was that good. So, I mean, it's such a hard thing to predict because everybody after the draft, they all come out and say the same thing. I can't believe that the guy that we wanted was still there. We're so happy to get this player at 10, at 20, at 30, whatever. Well, that's because everybody's draft board is different. Nobody has the identical 32 names in the first round all in order. Everybody's got a different name in different spots. So odds are that there's going to be a player available at 20 that's much higher on the Jets draft board than 20 because everybody's got different names, whether your analysis is right or wrong. So let's say they put, an offensive tackle is possible at like the 10th spot on their draft board, and he's available at 20. They could absolutely go that route. So at some point, could I see them taking a running back? Sure. They're going to take probably 7 players. It seems as if running back is a very clear area of need. But last year, the last thing that you would have thought they would have taken going into that draft was anybody on the defensive line, and they took a defensive lineman 6th. So it's just there's so many moving parts, and it's such a fluid situation. It's almost impossible to 100% predict that a position is going to be addressed by any team in the draft.
Bob Wischuzen, radio voice of the Jets, with us, 1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. Brady and Gaz in for Levac on this President's Day. And, Bob, what are the Jets going to do with quarterback? Should they bring back Ryan Fitzpatrick? Do they think Bryce Petty is a guy who can be their future quarterback? And did you put any truth to the Colin Kaepernick to New York rumors?
Yes, and that is in the stratosphere. That's the easiest way to put it. Yes, I think they'll bring back Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yes, I think that they believe that Bryce Petty is someone that could be continually groomed for the future, but he's still a project. And no, I mean, I never made anything of the Colin Kaepernick speculation. I think that was all but invented, and I don't think that there's any chance that Colin Kaepernick is either nearly as interested in the Jets as it was portrayed, nor do I think the Jets have any interest in him.
Shifting from the NFL to college basketball, Bob, what did you have more fun doing this year? Joining in on the Maryland Flash Mob, or you and LaFonso Ellis dressing up as old-school Jim Boeheim?
Old school Jim Boeheim, only because there were at least like another 100 or so people in the building that looked as stupid as I did, as opposed to this past Saturday, where there was no one in the building that looked as stupid as I did. So I like to be part of a big group that looks stupid rather than looking stupid alone. And this past Saturday, I kind of looked stupid alone.
Do you think that Syracuse team will be an NCAA tournament team by the time Selection Sunday rolls around?
Yes. I do. I think they're flawed. I think they will probably be too dependent on the three. I don't think they're a team that's going to make a real deep run, but I do think that there's no doubt that they're one of the top 40 teams in the country. And if you're one of the top 40 teams in the country, then you get in. So I think they'll win enough games down the stretch where they will be a tournament team. But, they're probably looking at nothing better than a 7 or 8 seed, maybe even a shade lower. And if that's the case, then, now every game's a minefield. And, I don't know that a team that is as dependent upon the three as they're going to have to be to win can make a deep run. But the one thing I'll say about them, their team is right now, and if you're looking for just a team to make a surprise run in the tournament that has a specific kind of formula that could work, it's experience, and their team right now basically is in orbit around 2 fifth-year seniors. And I like, if I'm looking at a team just for 1 year, and it's not like Jim Boeheim is going to be around for much longer, if he's going to make a run with a team, you would like it to be, where your 2 best players are 2 fifth-year seniors, and he's got 2 guys that have been through a lot of wars now. And so, you never know. I mean, who knows? We've seen teams just shoot the lights out for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden they're in the Elite Eight, and you thought they were going to lose in the first round.
Bob Wischuzen, radio voice of the Jets, with us on 104.5 The Team, 104.5theteam.com. But he's also the voice of college hoops on ESPN. And, Bob, it seems like every week there's a new number 1 team. So who is it? Villanova, Kansas, Oklahoma? Who you got?
Well, there's obviously no clear-cut number 1 team, and that's why there's a different number 1 team every week. If I were to identify the couple of teams that I think could, if I was going to pick a championship game right now, I would probably pick Kansas and Michigan State. And I think those are going to be the 2 teams that will have gone through and passed the most tests on their way to the tournament. I love Villanova. I think Villanova is a team that checks every box in terms of being able to win a national championship, but they play one ranked team the rest of the regular season. I don't know how hard the Big East tournament is going to be for them. So I just, to me, when you're playing in the Big Ten, you're playing in the Big 12, you are playing a lot of battle-tested teams, and you become battle-tested yourself as a result. And I think that pays off often in March. I think that's why you constantly see a team like, some of the mid-major teams. Butler kicked the trend, but how many times has Gonzaga been a number 1, number 2, number 3 seed and not gotten to the Final Four? Sometimes, I think you pay the price for playing 3 months of basketball that's not at high a level as those teams you're trying to get past when you get to the tournament.
Who's the best player in college hoops? Is it Buddy Hield, Ben Simmons, or other?
Well, again, if I brought Michigan State, I'd certainly throw Denzel Valentine into that mix. If you take the 3 weeks that he missed and project his numbers over those 3 weeks added into what he's done, I think he's right there with the other 2. If I had to give, a wooden award to a player, I would give it to Buddy Hield because, you do get rewarded for showing up. And, as great as Ben Simmons is, can you automatically give a National Player of the Year award to a team that's got as good a chance of ending up in the NIT as they do the NCAA tournament, as opposed to a team that's gone back and forth between number 1 and number 3 basically the entire year? And that's what Oklahoma's been. So I would give it to Hield, but I wouldn't want to ignore how incredible a season that Valentine has had for Michigan State just because he missed those 2.5, 3 weeks back in the middle of the season with the injury.
Bob Wischuzen, voice of the Jets, voice of college hoop on ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at ESPN Bob. Bob, hey, enjoy the Jets off season and then enjoy the trip on to March Madness. I know we're excited about it as well. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Bob.
No problem, guys. Take care.